my name is William Lane, and I'm going to be reading from my book Past Life. Past Life is a story about people fleeing the wars in Europe to start a new life in Australia. Some of the books set in West Bennett Hills, Castle Hill, that part of Sydney, where I grew up, set about 50 years ago. And those areas have changed so much, I thought it'd be interesting to give a description of those places. And the passage I'm going to read features one of the main characters, Friedrich. He's a middle-aged guy who's fled Europe, survived the war in Europe, and he's basically just wandering around the shops and then goes back to the little house where he lives in an orchard. So, start. Friedrich wiped his forehead in the heat, old wounds itching. He limped on by the road in uneven time, keeping close to the school playground's metal fence. Children laughed and pointed across the asphalt. "Hey, Fritz," some called or jeered. "There's old Fritz." "When are you coming back, Fred?" demanded Jilly, the eldest Thompson girl, as she charged over the playground to fasten herself with a leap to the fence, unafraid of a Fritz, even one who had been in the war. Jilly Thompson, with the copper hair and freckles, detached herself from the fence, raced along a few yards and reattached. "You've been on holiday forever." "It feels like that, does it?" asked Friedrich. "The new cleaner's no good. You're the best cleaner." The bell rang, and with a clank Jilly launched herself away. Friedrich watched groups of children gather outside the classroom doors, the groups forming into lines. Teachers descended from the common room. He thought of them as brolgers. He had never seen a brolger, but he found the word evocative and had heard the children sing it in a repetitive song, the word producing a teacher-like image. One brolger, standing in a classroom doorway, glanced across the playground, saw him and waved, before she turned and entered her classroom, fledglings filing after. He resumed his daily limp to the shops. The bottle shop provided the first shade. He passed without stopping until he reached the pet shop, where he observed his face transposed on a basket of pups writhing in the window. His nose had shrunk since he had knocked off the bottle, as they said in this country. It appeared his face had grown slimmer and paler, a decade more defined. He bought several notebooks and a pen, something he had never done before in this country, and returned to the orchard. Heat and cicada song warped the day, although it was cool enough in his wisteria-covered shed. He sat on his bed and watched shadows lengthen on the floor. He had a semblance of a life here, he reflected. Skin had grown over wounds, as it does. Rhythms remained, the sun rising, the sun setting, school terms and times, seasons. He still enjoyed the sound of children playing. And in this country, people remain curiously childlike and often were spontaneously kind. They were not so damaged by history, he supposed. He took up a notebook and wrote 1963 on the cover. Put, put, put. Mrs. Thompson's black beetle crawled past the window. So it had already become that hour after school, the hour of returning children. One tinny car door slammed, then the other, and the Thompson girls shrieked in succession. Jilly and Susie released into light. Friedrich sat until the fruit trees, framed by the window, darkened and huddled, gaining in density as the day withdrew. Cicada song thinned sheet by sheet, collapsed in staggered stages and crumbled away altogether. Crickets and the lilies took up the lull before they too tapered off. Then the frogs started, and Mrs. Thompson called the girls inside before it grew too dark. Friedrich went to the window to look at the pines up the hill, tackling the hill. Could one say that? The darker the evening, the taller the pines, the nearer they crept. He had just turned from the window when the frogs paused, causing him to look again through the glass. The young woman stood between the shed and the trees. Although she stood with her back to him, he saw her outline followed a course in his memory. The woman's arms were half raised, as if she were taking a photograph. She dropped one arm to her side, carefully lowered the other, and began picking her way across the lawn towards the Thompsons' house. The door of the house opened, and Mrs. Thompson, in her kitchen apron, welcomed the woman in. After pacing the shed for some time, Friedrich put on his coat and took up his cane. Mrs. Thompson had told him he could visit any time he wished, and lately had made a point of saying she missed having a cup of tea with him. She and her children seemed to enjoy seeing him, and always insisted he belonged in the orchard. Mutual to see, perhaps, yet well-intentioned. He set off along the same path trodden by the visitor over the grass, past lilies and frog hollows. Mrs. Thompson sat him at her kitchen table opposite the guest, whom she introduced as Anna. "You two haven't met, have you?" said Mrs. Thompson, turning pumpkin and potatoes under a roast on a rack. "Anna takes photographs of the orchard, Fredrich," as she called Friedrich. Having returned the roast to the oven, Mrs. Thompson added, "Anna's an artist, a photographer. He's in the last year of art college." Then, to Anna, "Are you sure you haven't met Fredrich yet, dear? He's always about. Quiet as a mouse, though." "Been to his house," Anna said, referring to the shed at the bottom of the lawn, "although I've never found him home." Mrs. Thompson appreciated the words house and home. Fredrich could tell by the vigorous way she stirred the apple sauce. "Probably hiding from you," she said with a smile. Anna was dressed in black and red, in fabrics Friedrich wanted to thumb, a material that fell well. Her eyes had narrowed, and he realised she had just said something to him. "Pardon?" he asked, leaning forward, head cocked. Such an old man. "I said you must come to my end-of-year exhibition next month," said Anna. "It's the final show for her studies," Mrs. Thompson said. "Mine won't be the only works exhibited," said Anna. Anna's been photographed from the orchard as part of a graduation exhibition. She's been working on it for 6 months at least, haven't you, dear? Shooting it, she calls it. You must have seen her about, Fredrich, although I guess she generally comes when you're at work. The photographs are wonderful from what I've seen. Oh, blast, I let that sauce go." "Mrs. Thompson's coming to the exhibition," said Anna. "Aren't you, Mrs. Thompson?" "I'm able to, you dear. I hope to, but not the opening. I don't like crowds." "Some of the photos have Mabel and Julie and Susie as their subject," said Anna. Again Mrs. Thompson was pleased and smartly tapped a wooden spoon on the saucer rim. "I wanted you to take some photos of Fredrich here, Anna," she said, not for the first time it sounded. "He's as much part of the orchard as any of us. And I wanted you two to meet. I always can tell when two people will click." She launched into mashing a pot of potatoes and shooed away her girls. Friedrich watched Anna's fingers drum the table. The hand was considering something. "What do you photograph?" he asked, despite being told. "I mean, why photograph this orchard?" "Some of my early memories are of an orchard," said Anna. "This one?" "No." Above the table the light bulb fluttered, and the room shrank. A little dash had appeared between Anna's eyes. "But I do remember lilies under fruit trees, and I remember the smell of the fruit." And she took an apricot from the table and passed it back and forth under her nose, feeling as much as smelling it. "Can I shoot you?" Friedrich smiled. "You wish me to go through that again?" Thank you for listening.